It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. All the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant doubled. All the cash back from the trip where you sort of learned how to snowboard also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
Yet another exciting weekend of postseason action in the NHL deserves another spicy Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And Steele and I are here to break down everything that you need, both from the weekend and to tee up Monday's action. Thank you for joining us. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news and daily degenerate gambling breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, joined as always by your esteemed co-host and mine as well, Mr. Steele Roden. You can find his work all across YouTube, NHL Quick Hits, and all across the Locked On NHL Network. I'm your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, and you know where to find my work, The Score, NHL, CBC, everywhere you find your hottest content for the NHL and betting news. But more importantly, today's episode, my friends, is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And also, thank you for making us your first listen every single day. As much as it slows down these months, Steele, for you and I in the fantasy realm, we're always bringing these takes, daily recaps, especially after the weekend. Lots to talk about. We're going to tie it back into fantasy realm, especially when it comes to Matthew Tkachuk. And what he's doing right now for this Florida Panthers team is special. We want to talk about that on today's episode. Where do you draft him next year, Steele? Because all of a sudden, this is becoming really important because it seems to me like he is potentially one of the most influential fantasy players out there. Dallas, Vegas, Game 2 recap. Florida, Carolina, Game 2 recap and Game 3 tee up. We're going to get to it all. And also, Steele, I need to ask you about Adin Hill is out dueling Jake Ottinger. There is a lot of very intriguing storylines to talk about, and we're going to tie it all back to fantasy and, of course, Monday's big-time bets. I want to throw it over to you, though, my friend. Let's start with this Dallas-Vegas series. A lot to all these games already going to overtime. What else do you need when you're a hockey fan right now? What are you seeing from this Vegas-Dallas series? Hit me with your top takeaways from another close Game 2.
Hey, more hockey, the better, man. I love what I'm watching in both the Western and Eastern Conference Finals. Every single game so far has been just incredible. But what I took away from Game 2 is the team that won isn't always the team that deserves to win in the end. But at the end of the day, got the job done. And sometimes that's all you can ask for, especially if you're a head coach. Maybe you don't think your team deserved to win, but you still came up with a big 2 points or just a big win in a series like this. And now the Vegas Golden Knights find themselves up 2-0. But I thought Dallas played a really great game, a really solid game for 60 minutes in regular time. Unfortunately, get beat on a bad line change quickly in overtime to start things off with that extra frame. But for me, this really comes down to the Vegas Golden Knights star players showing up the entire postseason, as well as in this series already. Mark Stone takes advantage of a very bad 5-on-3 situation for the Dallas Stars. He buries his 6th goal of the playoffs. Jonathan Marchessault buries his 6th of the playoffs as well late in the third period to tie up the game at 2. And then Chandler Stevenson going hard to the net, going for the rebound, and there's an open net, and he quickly buries that in overtime. And, I said one of the players in Shea Theodore. I thought Shea Theodore really needed to be better in the postseason, as well as just get going in this series as well. And what does he do? He's quick to realize He's quick with the awareness of what's going on and realizes the Dallas Stars are going for a sloppy change. He joins the rush. He takes a pass from Mark Stone. He puts the puck on net. And Chandler Stevenson's there to bury the open net and secure the win for the Vegas Golden Knights to go up 2-0 in this series. You look at the Stars. Marchessault had 2 points. Stevenson had 2 points. Mark Stone had 2 points. Theodore and Eichel getting 1 assist as well in this Game 2 action. So for me, the Stars showed out. And, like you said, Adin Hill really battling strong right now against Jake Onger. Who would have thought, like you said, this goalie carousel for the Vegas Golden Knights, you never know who's going to be in the blue paint. It seems like every other night, but Adin Hill is making the most of this opportunity. But for me, it's really the Stars showed out for the Vegas Golden Knights. And now they're up 2-0 in the series.
Most definitely, Steele. And this is one of these things. I don't even know where to really take this conversation because I think, especially me, I haven't given this Vegas team nearly enough credit. And I've already said what I need to say to kind of eat my hat on that kind of side of things because they're here for a reason. And now look at this, 2 games up, getting it done by committee. We don't need to break down that angle as well. Chandler Stevenson, though, Adin Hill. These are some unsung heroes that you never would have really banked on for this Vegas Golden Knights team to be this successful. And maybe that's the angle we need to look at because that's what happens in a Stanley Cup run. It's such a battle for this title that there's going to be guys that we didn't maybe expect to step up. Chandler Stevenson, best season of his career this year. Maybe we should have expected that. But that carousel that you mentioned, I don't think we've ever seen this before in the NHL with a team playing that many goaltenders during the regular season and still have throwing Laurent Brassard in there to start. I think you and I both had to kind of break down the benefits and the disadvantages of having a guy in there. And he showed out a little bit. And then you have to go back to Adin Hill. I'm just a bit flabbergasted by this situation, honestly, Steele, and hats off to the Vegas Golden Knights taking both games at home. Do I think Dallas is out of it? Absolutely not. And, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that on Tuesday's episode when we tee up those games. I just want to leave it at this for you and throw it back over to you for your take because as much as Hintz has been amazing, Robertson stepping up a little bit, who do you think needs to step up for Dallas? I know Jake Ottinger is the obvious, but who needs to step? Because to me, someone needs to kind of take the reins here. And I know Hintz has done his thing. But they're in trouble now, and I don't know what they have to do to pull themselves out of it, to be honest.
Look, I don't think they have to do much. Again, I think they were the better team.
Right?
They were the better team for majority of Game 2. They played a way better game for 60 minutes. And again, they got beat on a sloppy change to start the overtime. And Vegas made quick work of a 4-on-3 opportunity. I think Peter DeBoer, we've talked about the coaching matchups. This is a good time for Peter DeBoer, a little bit of a revenge mode. And like you said, that they're down 2-0, but they're not out of this by a long shot. A team has to win 4 games to win a series, and that's all that matters. So as long as there's an opportunity and a chance, Dallas still remains in this series. And again, I think they've played great in both first 2 games. There's not much to change. They just got very unlucky in Game 2, a very bad bad sloppy change. But I want to go to what you were talking about and about for next year. I know we're going to talk about Matthew Tkachuk very shortly. Where will he end up in next year's fantasy draft? But as well for Vegas, this makes me take a look at some of those other players right now and where they might end up, like Chandler Stevenson. What's going to happen with him next year? Does he move up in his fantasy value? Yep. We've talked about Jack Eichel as well, about I believe I drafted him in the 4th round, maybe the 5th round in both my fantasy leagues this year. Does his fantasy value go up as well? But what I want to ask real quickly before we move forward, what about Mark Stone? His fantasy value. He's having a great playoffs. Yes. This is a guy that has struggled to play games in the regular season over the last 5-6 years. You go back to the year that he was traded from Ottawa. I think that was the last year. I think he's played 1 season over 60 games plus in the last 6 years.
I got it open here. He played.
He struggled to play games in the regular season.
Yep.
Yeah, he's played one season. He's played more than 60 plus games in a year in the last 6 years. So he's definitely struggled to play games. But when he is in the lineup, he's almost a point per game player. And now that he's showcasing this again, that he's 31 years old, but he's showcasing what he's still got in the playoffs. Yeah. Where does he end up in next year's fantasy draft? He was drafted in the 12th round, so there's a lot of guys on Vegas right now.
Such an interesting question, Steele, and I'm actually glad you brought it up because it was one of the things that when I was putting together notes for today's episode, it's a great question because when he's in there and healthy, Mark Stone to me is just an absolute gamer. There's so much to like about what he brings to the table. Like fantasy is one thing, but if you're a coach in the NHL, by the way, Bruce Cassidy goes from the Bruins to the Golden Knights. Look at what the Bruins did, and his imprint, his fingerprints are all over that squad. This guy, I think, seriously, you and I have talked a little bit over the last week or so about some of these coaches that are really starting to make an impact on their team's success. My goodness, Bruce Cassidy right there at the top of the list. So that's one thing. Mark Stone, to me, aside from the injury steal, such a beast. And that's where, for me, I'm going to cop out again. You know me on these cop-out answers, and we're going to get to everything else. Matthew Tkachuk, Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, big-time bets for Monday night. But let me wrap it up with this. If he can stay healthy, Steele, I absolutely love Mark Stone, and I'd be comfortable taking him. And hit me with your take on this before we go to break. I'm going to say 3rd, 4th round if he can stay healthy. Depending on the format, it's just like gambling on him too high is a very risky player. And if he can pay off and stay healthy, he's just such a good quality daily NHLer. What's your take, though, on what I'm saying? I'm going to say 4th round. I'm going to cop out even more. 4th round.
4th round might be a little bit high for me. And the thing is, again, I'll give a quick answer here, but he plays, on an average 50 to 60 games a year, it seems like, over the last 6 or 7 seasons. The issue. And even then, he's still putting up consistently like 60, 65 points, 55 points.
In 77 games, his highest played in the NHL since his 3rd year, he put up 73 points in 77 games. So I think the caveat is just his health.
He's been a very consistent guy whenever he's in the lineup.
Yeah, 4th is too high. My bad. Too high.
Almost a point per game type of player. But again, it's the health issues. How much risk is there to the reward satisfaction that you can take? Do you take him? Do you go early in the 4th round? I think that might be a little early. I'm thinking more like 6th or 7th. Yeah. That's a little bit more risk to reward management right there, but I think his fantasy value definitely goes up from round 12.
That's why we do this show together, Steele. I appreciate you. We're going to come back from the break, though, and talk about Matthew Tkachuk making his mark on the NHL. This is something, though, as fantasy GMs, we need to talk about it, Steele. We need to break it down because I think he's one of those pieces that is going to be a factor on winning fantasy teams for the next number of years. I want to talk a little bit more about Bobrovsky. I want to talk about some bets for Monday night. Thank you for joining us for Monday's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Steele and I love buying tickets for our favorite events, and it shouldn't be stressful. You don't want to be stressed out when you buy tickets, and that's why you download Game Time. And buying your tickets for your favorite event has never been easy. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for sports, music, comedy, theater events, all near you. Killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee. Stop stressing over tickets and getting hyped. You need to focus on enjoying your next event. Go download the Game Time app today and forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of your event. Exclusive flash deals on football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section and the same row for less, Game Time has you covered, and they will refund you with 110% of the difference. Make sure you snag those tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. $20 off your first purchase is what you'll get. Terms apply. Create an account today and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for that $20 off. Make sure you download that Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Hey there, Locked On listener. Erica L. Ayala from Locked On Kraken here. And I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right. Everything you've earned doubled. All of the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant, doubled. All the cash back from that trip where you sort of learned to snowboard, also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find a Locked On podcast of your favorite team in all 4 major sports leagues and the NCAA, your team every single day. Flip, just incredible play from the Florida Panthers. Not just the Florida Panthers, though, in the NHL. Like, even the NBA and the Miami Heat. Think about this. Both Florida Panthers and Miami Heat coming into the playoffs in the 8th seed. Both find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals up 2-0 against some top-tier teams. Just we'll leave it at that.
The Heat are up 3-0, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. The Heat are up,
or is it 2?
3-0. I think it's 2-0. It might be the Denver Nuggets are up 3-0 on the Lakers my bad. Now. I think the Heat are up 2-0. They might be playing as
You're right. It's 2. It's 2. Sorry, I was thinking the Nuggets. Both kind of surprises though.
Both absolutely sensational. But yeah, both coming into the playoffs in 8th seeds. Miami, Florida just absolutely loving life right now as they find their 2 teams and their superstars just showcasing. Jimmy Butler just taking over. Same for Matthew Tkachuk and Sergei Bobrovsky. We're going to start there. Matthew Tkachuk, though, I'll throw it over to you. Just what an absolute incredible pickup and trade from Bill Zito. Just getting it done right now in the playoffs.
I was talking to a friend the other day, Steele, and what kind of crystal ball is the Florida Panthers front office working with off the season Jonathan Huberdeau had?
Unbelievable.
No, but seriously, what did they see to know that this is the kind? I know contracts and situations happen, but what did they see to trade the franchise record in point player in Huberdeau? Someone also, Steele, headed into this season, there wasn't much you could poke a hole in Huberdeau's game. He was an absolute stud of a player. And look at what this Florida Panthers team has done. And I don't know where to – Bobrovsky, sensational. 60 – was it – hold on. I got it here because you know me with the numbers. 63 saves in game 1. And I know it was 4 overtime periods. Paul Maurice, the blue line. Guys like Carter Verhaeghe, the Matthew Tkachuk trade. Bennett, Reinhart. This is one of the other questions that we'll get to. And I have to ask it to you, but – let's start with Tkachuk because, to me, there's not many other players, Steele, that at the top of the draft, and I mean the very top, I am not going to overlook Matthew Tkachuk for many other players. What's wrong with even taking him first overall? Seriously, with all that he brings to the table. Why not?
Yeah, well...
Too bold. I'm just saying, he's right now in the top 10, in my opinion.
Well, let's start there then. Let's talk about this real quick. Maybe we're going to do this in the offseason as well, a little bit more in depth. But let's go through some of the picks that where do you go with Matthew Tkachuk? So real quick, I'll just start throwing some hockey players. For me, of course, number 1, Connor McDavid. That's who goes number 1. Leon Draisaitl, number 2. For sure. I think easily Nathan McKinnon and David Pastrnak are 3 and 4, maybe interchangeable.
Fair. Interchangeable.
I think at number 5 or 6, you could easily go your boy Elias Pettersson or Mikko Rantanen as well. After the season they both just had.
See, this is, and you know what though, the first 4 players you said I think are solidified.
And this is where it gets close. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes, this is where it starts.
So the first 4 to me: Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan McKinnon, David Pastrnak. Those are the guys that are pretty much the top 4, at least in top 5. It depends where they go, but I think at number 5. Especially when you start to get to number 7, number 8, that's when you can start thinking about throwing Matthew Tkachuk in. We're talking about Matthew Tkachuk. David Pastrnak went late in the 2nd round in our fantasy league or early 2nd round. Matthew Tkachuk was right there as well with David Pastrnak. Both those guys jumping up from the second to the first round this upcoming fantasy season. So I think, what do you think? Number 7, number 6, around that area?
Yeah, and I was, throwing him out there at the number 1 is more so like this is just how good he's been, right? When you look at the list of postseason points, 18 points for Tkachuk so far. Yes, I'm so spot on with you though. When you're talking about the number where we're projecting, 6 feels good, doesn't it? When you talk to Matthew Tkachuk's potential, but also at the end of the day, Steele, like he is just kind of putting together one of those seasons. Moving from Calgary to Florida, getting it done, all of the angles that you can kind of break down here. And hold on, I'm bringing up this stat that I had. I'm trying to zoom in on this thing. It's not working. It's really rattling my cage. OT goals. He already has 3 this postseason. Yeah. This is just one of those caveats that, that doesn't translate to fantasy per se. He's just got the confidence. He's got the clutch. He's got the ability. He plays with edge. Mm-hmm. He brings all of those angles to the table. And I think, 6, 7, 8. I think if you miss out on Tkachuk after the top 10, you're really kind of making a mistake.
Yeah.
But hey, let's see what he does for the rest of the postseason, Steele. He might rocket up his value even more, although realistically, those guys are all studs. But what he's done is made people pay attention to him in a very serious way.
Yeah, I think if you're letting Matthew Tkachuk slip out of the top 10 in your fantasy draft, or even just out of the first round in your fantasy draft, you've clearly done something wrong, and you need to regroup and recircle on some things about yourself. But I'm there right with you. We are going to get to big time bets very, very shortly, but real quick, I do want to talk about Sergei Bobrovsky, maybe where his fantasy value takes next year as well. And I think this secures his starting job as well for next year. I don't think Spencer Knight's going to be the starting goaltender. I don't think it's going to be Alex Lyon or anybody else. It's Sergei Bobrovsky's crease for next season's regular season.
How about these numbers though during the regular season, Steele? 24, 20, and 3. Not great, not bad. But a 3.07 goals against and barely a 900 save percentage. This is one of those things that I think I, alluded to it off the top of the show. You can't predict this stuff. I don't think anyone on the planet predicted Sergei. You could have maybe said, hey, Florida can go on a heater. You may have predicted some upsets. Sure, I'm here for that conversation. I don't think it would have come through Sergei Bobrovsky after what we saw from him this year. And, what you're saying about Spencer Knight, for sure. Alex Lyon was in there too. And it's like the fact that we even have to talk about Alex Lyon and Bobrovsky's doing what he's doing is a huge kind of come-to moment of this postseason has been one of the more unpredictable ones that I've ever seen. We talked about the 4 teams that are in there. You wouldn't have called that. And maybe we weren't like kind of hyped up for it. These players are now kind of making this postseason exciting. Every single game so far, Steele, OT. So things are getting kind of spicy. Bobrovsky, insane. And I mentioned the regular season numbers. He was so good in game 1. He was so good in game 2 as well.
Yeah.
I think, what was it here? I have it somewhere. Was it 63 saves in game 1? Hold on.
63 saves. 63 saves in 4 overtimes.
Yeah. This is where now you have to start to tip your cap to Bobrovsky. And why? And this is the last question I have for you. I haven't looked at the updated Vegas odds. Florida now has that 2-game lead. Should they not be the Cup favorites? Right there, and why not? Why not?
It's tough because the Vegas Golden Knights are also up 2-0 in their series as well. So I think obviously
they should be evenly considered.
They definitely should, and we'll have to bring those up very soon. But I just quickly wanted to mention it's been unbelievable what we're watching firsthand from both Matthew Tkachuk and Sergei Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky hasn't been under a .917 save percentage since Game 6 against the Boston Bruins. Wow. 7 straight games, he's allowed 2 goals or less. That's just incredible in itself. You talked about the 63 saves. His last 3 games have just been unbelievable. 974 save percentage, 969 save percentage, 962 save percentage. It's honestly insane and incredible what the Florida Panthers and this streak that they're kind of going on and this run that they're going on. Like for me, I don't want to take any credit away from the Florida Panthers. I think this could easily be 2-0 Carolina, or at least tied 1-1. Both games were in overtime. One went to 4 overtimes. And again, this goes back to before this series with the Florida Panthers. Carolina was 86% at home in the past 2 years in the playoffs, 12-2 at home the past 2 seasons. They were actually a perfect 100% in games 1 and 2 in any round of the past 2 years playoffs. So it's very shocking to see Florida go into Carolina and win both games at home. But again, you said you made a comment about, the crystal ball that the front office had. Even talk about Paul Maurice. He was with the Winnipeg Jets, left the Jets, said they needed a new voice in the room. And 6 months later signs with the Florida Panthers, and he's coaching them to what looks like the Stanley Cup Finals. Just an unbelievable run so far.
What's up, everybody? David Harrison here of the Locked On Commanders podcast. When life gets crazy, and honestly, when doesn't it? Walmart helps you keep it all together now with a little extra help from Instacart. If you need your groceries now-ish, but your options for going to Walmart are later-ish or never-ish, you can get everything you need delivered through Instacart right to your door in as fast as an hour. Skip the shop and savor more of your crazy busy life with Walmart and Instacart. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply.
But we are going to tee up Game 3 of the Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love and support you show us every single day. Flip, big time bets, Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, Game 3. I'll throw it over to you. Where do you want to start with this?
Thank you, sir. And actually, before I get to that nitty gritty, most consecutive road wins in a single playoff run.
Yes.
Panthers have 8. Every other team with 7 or more, including the LA Kings in 2012, every single one of those teams who have been able to win that many games on the road have won the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I was going with, maybe they should be right there as even odds with the Vegas Golden Knights as Cup favorites. But at the end of the day, we're 2 games deep into both. Game 3 is obviously pivotal. And let's talk about that very quickly, Steele, because this is where things can maybe get out of hand very quickly for a Carolina team that we thought, I don't think, as you said very accurately, 2 overtime games, a 4 OT game, maybe a couple of bounces. This is a lot different of a series and a lot different of a conversation that you and I are having.
Yeah.
But why don't I start with the Matthew Tkachuk angle? Because honestly, I don't think there's hey, you might disagree with me on my other takes, but Matthew Tkachuk has been such a stellar performer in the clutch. Even when he's kind of having an off game, I feel he's able to positively affect the game with how much energy he brings. But tonight, I'm going with the Tkachuk anytime goal. I'm feeling it, Steele. He has been on a heater. He has been a difference maker. So let me start with that. Give me the Tkachuk anytime goal, because I know everything is pointing in the side of bet with Carolina. They have to salvage. They have to respond. I understand all of that. You might not like my other 2 picks, though, if you're going with that angle.
We'll have to see. I'm there with you, though. It's not one of my picks, but it's definitely going to be – it's an honorable mention. It's going to be in the parlay. I'm with you with the Matthew Tkachuk anytime goal. My first – I've actually got 2 player props for my first 2 picks. First pick, though, Seth Jarvis anytime goal at plus 300 right now. I think he's been one of the best players so far for the Carolina Hurricanes this entire postseason, as well as this series so far. I think you can throw Jesperi
I love that
in there as well. So Seth Jarvis needs to be shown some love. Great game 1 against the Panthers. Obviously, they haven't won yet, but Seth Jarvis anytime goal at plus 300. My second pick, though, I'm going with Brandon Montour, 3+ shots on net, minus 154 now. He had 3 shots last game. The game before that, he had 8. And the game before that, he had 9. So if this game goes into overtime again, he's going to be putting the puck in net. But within 60 minutes, I think he can throw the puck on net at least 3 times. He's always jumping into the rush. He loves going on some odd man rushes as well, doing whatever he can in the offensive zone. So 3+ shots at -154.
This is the kind of time of season, though, honestly, still, like, we're going to come on here and give our best bets. We do the research. We like the angles. We're watching a lot of hockey. It's just a time of year to really be careful with how much you're trying to invest. These games are going to be very tight. And as much as, I'm going to explain my lock of the night and unders make sense, it's also just a hard time to handicap. Like teams get desperate. Things can get really wild here. Tkachuk, I'm feeling that one. I'm okay with the odd there. I also think at the end of the day, Steele, and this is going to be maybe an unpopular opinion, I think the Carolina Hurricanes have all the pressure in the world here. Panthers are playing with house money. And sometimes in these series, that confidence, the shift of motivation, energy, all of these things that don't really sound like betting angles factor into these outcomes of these games. And I really do think at -105, the Panthers are also 7-3 in their last 10 against Carolina, all overall. Give me the Panthers on the money line. Why not? I'm so okay with the odd here in this situation. Yeah, of course, all of the sense Carolina series on the line. You want to go with them? Give me the Panthers on the money line. And my lock of the night, if you're okay with it, I'm teasing it once again, the total, it's got to be under. I think this is you're going to see a real scrappy affair, something where, again, Carolina, they have to show their best. And I think when they're at their best, you and I can both agree, that means a really stingy defensive affair.
Yeah.
Ranta was in the net for game 2. I don't know who's going to be in the cage for game 3, but give me the under 6.5, teasing it up. That's my lock of the night. And Panthers on the money line. I'm also liking that at -105.
I think obviously they go back to Frederik Andersen. I think you just give him give him the night off, obviously an extra day of rest because it goes to it goes to 4th overtime. You can't the Florida Panthers don't really have the luxury of doing that. They don't have a backup in Antti Raanta to really rely on, so they got to go back to Sergei Bobrovsky. He gets the job done. So I think we'll see Frederik Andersen back in the crease, but I'm with you right now with the under. I'm going under 5.5 in this matchup. That is my lock of the night, -106. Let's look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 games in a row for the Florida Panthers. It's been under the number. I just think that's the trend to go with. It looks like it's going to be a goalie battle between Andersen, Antti Raanta, and Sergei Bobrovsky, whoever's in the crease. We said this from the beginning. It's going to be a goalie battle, and that's exactly what we're getting. So I'm with you right there as well. Lock of the night, under 5.5 at -106. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time is when you can find our episodes. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.